Everyone, it's Linda McKenna from Golden Rule Senior Placement Services with WOW. Today is Wonderful All Wednesday, and it's also Words of Wisdom. Well, today being April 8th, and we're observing that it's Occupational Therapy Month, we're going to talk about what ADLs, activities of daily living, should you be observing with your senior loved one. And then honestly, next week, we're going to be talking about, on Tuesday Talks, we're going to go a little bit more in depth with Occupational Therapy Month and all that surrounds it for your senior loved one. So to no further ado, we're going to talk about ADLs, activities of daily living. Observe seniors for difficulties with basic activities of daily living. Bathing, dressing, toileting, transforming, that's also meaning mobility, transforming from a chair to a bed or a bed to a chair, whatever that it may be, but transferring is important. It's about mobility. Continence, that means if they're having little bits of accidents or not able to control their bladder or their bowel movements. And eating, to gauge independence on all of these. Also monitor instrumental ADLs, like medication management, cooking, shopping, and finances. As struggles here often appear first, signaling a need for increased support. Key ADLs to monitor include, now on a personal part, is the personal hygiene and grooming. Do they have the ability to bathe, shower, grooming, brush their teeth, and fix hair safely? A lot of the times, a lot of people don't admit about not taking showers because they have the fear of falling in the shower. Sometimes they're not equipped, the shower, to have grab bars or safety measures, but they do a way of not bathing and showering because they are afraid of falling. So that's something that you want to recognize, because cleanliness is important, especially if somebody's incontinent. And bathing really is something that needs to be regularly done to preserve your skin integrity as well too. Brushing the teeth and fixing hair, of course, is grooming measures, and it's something that should be adhered to on a regular basis. And if these two factors, the personal hygiene and grooming, are not done because they're forgetting to, or you're seeing them in the same clothes, meaning the fact that they're not bathing and they're just existing, cleanliness is a very important aspect of it that should be addressed. Dressing, selecting appropriate clothing and putting them on and without any assistance. A lot of people say, oh, I could get dressed by myself. I don't need that assistance when I go to senior living. I ask them all this question, and it's something that my wonderful occupational therapist daughter actually says. Always ask them, are they able to put on their shoes? Are they ties? A lot of them will just do slip-ons. That is the hardest thing for them to do, is the lower extremity actually dressing, putting socks on and shoes. So it's something that you should be aware of, and it's also a safety reason. Wearing the proper clothing also helps with mobility as well too. The proper shoes are very important so they could have a better mobility and able to transfer a lot of things. Also, do they have the ability of buttoning? With their osteoarthritis or anything that they might have nerve damage, that they're not able to do that or lift above their head. So dressing is important. It's a key thing, that having the appropriate clothing that they can still remain independent, that they can dress. If it's a problem, that's something that should be addressed with their physician, and maybe occupational therapy needs to be ordered for them at home or within their senior living home. Mobility and transferring, moving around the home, walking and transferring in and out of bed or chairs. We are so familiar with our home landscape, right? A lot of our seniors don't use their assisted devices at the home. For the very reason is because they know how to walk around or know the landscape of their home. So with that being said, tripping devices that could easily trip them up, throw rugs, barriers in walking. If somebody is a hoarder or they have a lot of furniture around that they're not able to maneuver around with an assisted device, is something that needs to be acknowledged. Also transferring from bed to chair, but also you have to consider also transferring to a commode. So that's something that your body, not only upper strength and lower strength, needs to be combined. So this way they have better transferring, and that they are something that they can do on their own with not much assistance. If that is a problem, then obviously there is need for physical therapy and occupational therapy to preserve their independence, get assisted devices that they can be able to do this, but more importantly than anything else is making the doctor aware of it. So if they're in senior living and this is something that we find that they're neglecting, that they can't do, it's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Toileting and continence, using the bathroom independently and managing their bowels and bladder control. Yes, accidents do happen, but if it's something that they can't actually predict, that they actually need to go to the bathroom, or they are just soiling themselves because they no longer have control, is something that needs to be addressed. That incontinence of both bowel and bladder need to be observed, because one could sustain a urinary tract infection as well too. There needs to be changing more often and being cleaned more often. So that's something that can be managed at home with a proper caregiver, and also within senior living. Eating. The physical ability to feed oneself rather than a meal preparation. It's not about making the meal, it is about being able to eat. Do they have not the autonomy of holding a fork and being able to feed themselves? But more importantly, they might have difficulty swallowing. That is important as well to post-stroke, whatever that it may be, a neurological damage, is that speech therapy not only can help with that, but a lot of times swallowing is inhibited because of what the trauma was. And not having the right foods to be able to swallow could be very detrimental, which they call aspiration. So monitoring that, importantly, if you see them gurgling when they're eating, or teary eyes and stuff like that, or runny nose, is usually a sign of difficulty swallowing. That's where speech therapy along with occupational therapy is very much that the doctor should know to be able to order that, not only within their own home, but of course within senior living. Signs of struggle to watch for: poor hygiene, unpleasant odor, dirty clothes, or unkempt hair. So if that is something that your mother or your father, grandmother, grandfather, whoever that may be, your senior loved one, is you're noticing it now, obviously they're struggling with it and it needs to be addressed. Weight changes, unexplained weight loss, difficulty cooking, eating, or gain because of inactivity. So the weight change could fluctuate, absolutely. If there's a loss, they're not eating effectively. Sometimes they're just eating, noshing on a couple of things, and that's something that is enriched with protein that helps them with their joints, not only that, but their muscle mass as well. But if there's something that there's a weight gain, that means they're sitting around a lot, not moving around, and proper not digesting either. That's something that should be addressed not only with your loved one, but also with their doctor. Realize that also if somebody's sitting around all day, fluids drain to their feet, so it makes it even harder for them to walk. So think about this as it being serious, to watch their eating habits and their diet, especially if somebody's diabetic or somebody's got hypertension and their salts need to be watched. Safety issues, frequent falls, bruises, or burns. Absolutely. Somebody said, oh, I just tripped. But if that happens often, if there is frequent falls, that means there is definitely a mobility issue. They're not using an assisted device, or They might even have peripheral neuropathy that they can't feel their footing. Something that needs to be addressed. Definitely occupational therapy could address that along with physical therapy. But if you see a lot of bruises that they're hitting into walls or actually having skin tears, that's something that they're not safe on their footing, or even burns. Maybe, when they're cooking, that they're burning themselves. But also that is a sign of something that needs to be addressed, not only with them, but also with their physician. Medication errors, missing doses or taking too much. This is an issue that I deal with on a regular basis. Nobody is independent that has some kind of memory loss. Forgetting to take medication, or sometimes doubling up on it because one forgot it, or missing it totally, also is not reaping the benefits of that medication to help the body heal. But it's something that is very, very important that that needs to be monitored. If it's at home, a professional service to help your loved one with that. If they're in senior living, that is going to be addressed on part of their intake process about medication management. And there is what they call medication services that they could be administered or given the medication on as per order. Household decline, spoiled foods in the refrigerator, unpaid bills, or unclean living spaces. If this is something that never was, a sight to be seen before, it's something that you want to take notice now. If there's spoiled food in the refrigerator, that is definitely a concern. That means they're not eating properly, or they're letting it spoil, or they might eat it and it's something that could be detrimental to their health. Unpaid bills, they're not connecting that with what needs to be done on a regular basis. And that could be a flag up, and it could really hinder their living situation. Not paying a telephone bill for a long time, or not paying the utility bill for a long time is also something that it could be shut off. So something you need to get involved in. Unclean living spaces, if hoarding is an issue. Garbage all around the home because they're not throwing out the garbage, or not getting to the curb to throw out the garbage, is something that needs to be addressed, because that could really increase rodents. That it's not good in that atmosphere, and especially with hoarding, it's obstructive pathways. It's something that is overwhelming, not only in physical sense, but to their mind sense. So what I would like to address with you all is regularly assessing these alongside with instrumental ADLs, managing finances, using the phone, and shopping helps determine if a senior needs additional home care or senior living, that being assisted living, assisting with their living. No better time to do it now. Don't wait till an occasion happens. Be more proactive than reactive with your senior loved one. And no better time to address it than Occupational Therapy Month. As always, I lead you to my website. It is www.goldenruleseniorplacement.com. There you will find my demographics, my bio, testimonials, various options on senior living resources, and a whole library of both. Of Now Tuesday Talks, which we had one yesterday, and then also this, wow, which is Wonderful Old Wednesday and Words of Wisdom. So next week for Wonderful Wednesday, wow, we're going to be talking about National Healthcare Decision Day. It's actually the day before that we are going to talk about it. April 16th is depicted as that day. So that's Wonderful Wednesday. That's going to be on April 15th, also Tax Day. And for next week for Tuesday Talks, that being April 14th, we're going to go a little bit more in depth what occupational therapy is and about activities of daily living in a little bit more in-depth approach. So as always, please have a blessed week. If you have any questions, please write to me, and I look forward to talking with you again. And thank you for viewing. Wow, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much. Bye-bye now.